the record show at 6 o'clock. We'll call a meeting to order. Sarah, will you do the roll call, please?
Jeff Whitaker.
Here.
Linda Barnhart.
Present.
Eric Gall.
Here.
McKenna Norton.
Present.
Tim Lewis.
Present.
Daniel Gant.
Here.
Michael Bush.
Here.
Ronald Reagan.
Okay, we have a quorum. I need an approval for the agenda. I don't think there's any changes.
Move to
it.
approve.
Second. Motion by Mr. Goff and second by Mr. Gant to approve the agenda as submitted. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Did we have anybody that signed in for the open governmental? No? Let the record show that there's no one to speak under the Sunshine Law. Approval of the meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goff to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Abstain due to absence.
Let the record show that Mr. Gant is abstaining due to absence.
Myself as well, Madam President.
Okay, so we'll have two abstentions then, Mr. Bush and Mr. Gant. We have 3 public hearings this evening. We'll start with the first one with Rutherford Lane Apartments.
The first public hearing tonight's a request for waiver. The project is Rutherford Lane Trailer Park. The file is 2405-137 tied to 2312-395. The developer's Trailer Holdings LLC and the engineer is Greenway Engineering. It's located in the Mill Creek District, tax map 9 and 10, parcels 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, and 103. The site's located on Winchester Avenue, approximately 0.55 miles south of Musselman High School. The developer is proposing 6 apartment buildings with 48 total units on 2.83 acres to be served by public water and sewer. The developer is requesting the following waivers to the subdivision ordinance. Article 8, Section 801, Table 8-A7 for multifamily dwelling apartments, requiring 2.5 parking spaces per apartment unit plus 1 space per employee and 10% additional spaces for guests. Article 8, Section 802.183, prohibiting parking lots and parking spaces in a buffer yard. And Article 5, Section 503B, Table 5-2, requiring a 75-foot front setback for non-residential purposes abutting an arterial road. The developer is proposing 2.1 parking spaces per apartment unit plus 1 space per employee and 10% additional spaces for guests. This calculation's been used many times in the past for waiver requests. Since the reduction is consistent with ITE parking standards, staff recommends approval of the waiver to Article 8, Section 801, Table 8-1A7 for multifamily dwelling apartments. The developer's proposing 2 parking spaces within the 50-foot railroad buffer. These proposed spaces are only encroaching 15 feet into the railroad buffer area. Since no structures are being proposed within the 50-foot railroad buffer, staff recommends approval of the waiver to Article 8, Section 802.1A3, prohibiting parking lots and parking spaces in a buffer yard. And lastly, the developer is requesting a reduction of 55 feet for the front setback to allow for a 20-foot front setback instead of the required 75 feet. Due to safety concerns, staff recommends denial of the waiver request to Article 5, Section 503B, Table 5-2, requiring a 50-foot front setback for non-residential purposes abutting an arterial road.
Is it 50 foot or 75 foot?
They're asking for a 55-foot reduction from 75 feet, so they want a 25-foot front
Okay.
setback.
All right, do we have anyone to represent the project?
Yes, good evening. Jamie McLean with Greenway Engineering.
No.
Hello.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If you have questions or comments regarding this project, now's the time for you to come forward and make those known.
If there is no one, I move to close the public hearing portion.
Second.
Let the record show that there's no one to speak from the public regarding Rutherford Lane Trailer Park. I have a motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Gant, to close public hearing. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Ms. McLean or of the staff?
If I may, I do have some additional supplemental information for the third waiver request. That would be appropriate.
Did you give that to the staff?
Yes, ma'am. And I have
Earlier?
plenty of- Yes.
Or
and
just tonight?
it was just tonight. I didn't finish it until I worked on it all day. So
Okay.
if it is,
Sure, go ahead.
it can be added into the record. I have plenty to go around. Brought copies as well for public in case there was someone from the public that wanted a copy of it. Thank you. And I will keep it brief because I know your agenda is long.
Thank you.
But I wanted to make sure that I was as clear and concise in my request and that I could clarify anything that I may not have been as clear as I should have been previously. So what the waiver request, well, first I'll be quiet because you asked if they had questions. I will stand here quietly for that part.
Okay.
My question was going to be, would you like to address the safety concerns?
Yes, I would. So when I read the staff report and saw that they had safety concerns, that made me think that then we're going to the second condition that is required for a waiver, which is that the waiver does not negatively affect health, safety, or welfare as a result of granting it. So I take that concern seriously. So I took another look at the information that I provided and looked to see if there was a way that I could be more clear and concise and clarify my intent. So that's what I've got in front of you. It's really not that much information, but when I printed it out smaller, I couldn't read it. So what my understanding is we're looking at this from the perspective of a commercial site, because many times when you have apartment buildings, they're owned by one person or an entity, they're rented, and then it's a business use. So therefore, for tax purposes, they may be assessed as commercial. In my view, I would humbly say that I'm not arguing against that. However, the assessor chooses to assess it, that's fine. What I would request that we look at is the table 5.1, which addresses, it's on page 2, and that just addresses the requirements for a property when it's a residential use. When I looked to Article 2, because I always check my definition section first to refresh my memory, we define commercial development as wholesale, retail, or service. My understanding is, I understand why we're wanting to look at it from a assessment purpose as a commercial use, but from a strictly land use perspective and how the site will be laid out, I would humbly request that we consider looking at it from a residential perspective. I think we can all agree that the apartments are going to be dwelling units. People will reside in them. And so if we look at the table 5.1, we're compliant with that. We actually go a little bit beyond that. It's about 25 feet off. So to support that, I wanted to make sure that I brought data to you, not just my face and some PowerPoint slides. So I went to the ITE manual and looked at, if we strictly looked at the definition of commercial, and we looked at a retail establishment, commercial, or we looked at a service establishment, commercial, what that would look like in comparison to the traffic generated from the apartment units. So the traffic generated from the apartment units is approximately 314 daily trips. And that's on the sketch plan. And there's also there's 11 by 17 of the draft on the back, just for reference. I pulled up, I found out now the giant ITE books, there's a generator online. So I was very excited about that. But I looked at a retail commercial convenience store. I picked one that would be not a 24-hour store, but a 15 to 16 hour. In my mind, I know it's not in the county, but I think of the Rocks on King Street as one as a main thoroughfare. That traffic generation would be about 2,200. I can't quite read it. I gave myself the small copy. 2,287 trips per day with a 50-50 split. I then looked at a retail fast food with a drive-through. If we're looking at it from a commercial perspective, that's 1,402 trips per day. So I also tend to want to be annoyingly thorough, so I checked the comp plan as well. It's in the growth area, the transportation corridors, the areas where you have rightly designated that you want more density. And then finally checked the GIS. Of course, we all know, there's schools, the emergency services, the utilities are there. So what I would humbly request is that in summary, you consider the use of the property as it being residential and people will live there. And in that respect, they are compliant with the setbacks. And if you look at the sketch plan attached, you can see that it's compliant with those sketch plans, with those setbacks. And then I just provided some street view images of comparables on the last sheet in a summary table. So I have absolutely no issue with how staff has interpreted it. It is not my place. It is not my place to have an issue of how the assessor assesses it. I would just hope that we can look at it from a strictly land use perspective.
And I appreciate the information in the presentation. I think what's lost in that, however, is that this is a higher density use that's located along a major roadway, and many would say an undersized roadway for the amount of impact that it carries now and will in the future. So I appreciate where you're coming from. I just, frankly, I don't agree. What is the analysis on the changes in the planning, the subdivision regulations? That setback number will be changing in the future. Is that 50-foot number an amount that you could get to?
That is, any amount that is less than 75 is fine. What I am looking at and what I kind of forced myself to have blinders on is that we don't have the advantage of the new regulations yet. So I'm focusing on what we are currently under now, assuming that we've got the sketch plan in, it's under review. In all likelihood, we would continue under regulations that through. So I believe it does go to 50 in the new regulations, but I was strictly focused on what we have in hand right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Additional questions? I'd like to handle these as 3 separate motions. If there's no additional questions, can we look at the staff recommendation number 1, 2, and 3, or whether you want to call it A, B, and C?
Can I just clarify where Doug and I were coming from with
Sure.
the front setback is US 11 is only a 2-way lane right now, but it's a 60-foot right of way. And our big concern would be if that right of way was to, a turn lane through the whole middle, and then you have, 45, 50 mile an hour traffic going by, right by the residential building 20 feet away. That's where our safety.
Additional questions, Commissioner? Do you have anything you want to add, either one of you two? Okay, let's deal with the first request for waiver.
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the waiver request pursuant to staff recommendation for Article 8, Section 801, amending the requirement of 2.5 parking spaces per apartment unit, plus 1 per employee, plus 10% additional for guests.
Have a motion
Second.
by Mr. Bush, second by Mr. Goff. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries on the first waiver. The second waiver, Article 8, Section 802.1, blah, blah, blah.
Madam President, I make a motion to approve waiver request B, accept staff recommendation related to parking lots and parking spaces in a buffer yard.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bush and second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendation on Article B. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, then we get down to C.
Madam President, I make a motion to deny waiver request C related to amending the front setback.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Bush and a second by Mr. Lewis to accept the staff recommendation for item C, and that is to deny the request for a waiver for Article 5, Section 503B, Table 5-2. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, the next public hearing is Southbrook, Section 2, Phase 3.
This is a public hearing for request for final plat approval. The project is Southbrook Section 2, Phase 3, lots 186 through 221, and townhouse lots 103 through 107, and townhouse lots 170 through 177. The file is 2403-055. The developer is Chandler's Glen LLC, and the engineer is Gordon. It's located in the Mill Creek District, Tax Map 3, Parcel 9, and is located on Shiley Road, approximately 0.3 miles north of Hatchery Road. This phase proposes 36 single-family lots and 16 townhouse lots on approximately 14.10 acres to be served by public water and sewer. The final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $1,120,320 even, plat to be released upon receipt of surety and developer's agreement.
Hey, do we have anyone to represent Southbrook?
Jason Gerhart with Integrity Federal Services and Hunter Wilson.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is a public hearing. Again, is your opportunity to make your comments known regarding this project. We ask that you come forward, state your name, your address, and any comments you might have regarding this project. Let the record show that there's no one to speak from the public.
I move to close the public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Goff to close public hearing.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gant. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Planning Commission members, how about you? Do you have questions of Mr. Wilson or of Mr. Gerhart?
There are no questions. I'll make a motion we accept staff recommendation, approve the final plat contingent upon receipt and surety amount of $1,120,320.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Gant, second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendation, and that is to grant final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $1,120,320. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got it.
Thank you.
The next public hearing is Weber Springs.
Bless you.
This is a public hearing for request for final plat approval. The project is Weber Springs, Section 3, Phase 3A, lots 339 through 358. The file is 2312-406. The developer is Weber Springs LLC, and the surveyor is Roberts Land Surveying. It's located in the Mill Creek District, tax map 10, parcel 18.5, and is located along Middleway Pike, approximately 1,800 feet south of Sulphur Springs Road. This final plat proposes 20 townhouse lots on approximately 7.8 acres to be served by public water and sewer. The final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $399,900. Plat to be released upon receipt of surety and developer's agreement.
Okay, do we have anyone to represent Weber Springs?
Yes, Mike Roberts, represents the project.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Again, it is your opportunity to make your comments known. Please come forward and do that at this time if you have any.
My name's Virginia Forback, and I live at 190 Weber Springs Drive, and that's the only entrance and exit out of Weber Springs Drive. And myself and my neighbors included are worried that, and I wanted someone to come tonight, but I don't think any of them to come. We're concerned of the traffic going in and coming out. We already have 284 houses. And along with them, you know, at least 2 cars per house, and the road in and out is just atrocious now, and we're just concerned about it. And just wanted to throw that out there. And I don't know if there's a way to do another road for them, or that's totally bizarre for me to say that, but I just thought I wanted to come and tell you my concerns.
Okay. Is your concern that it only has one entrance? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and it's already overrun with vehicles going back and forth, and we get the townhouses in, and it's going to be really extremely, you know, busy back and forth. Street going in, and you know, there's just the one Weber Springs Drive, which my house is right off of Weber Springs, so it's very near and dear to my heart.
Seeing it
so.
every day, right?
Yeah.
What did you say your last name was?
Forback, F-O-R-E.
Planning Commission members, do we have anyone else that wishes to speak under the Sunshine Law or under the public hearing? I'm sorry.
If there is not, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
No additional speakers. We have a motion from Mr. Goff, second Mr. Gant, to close public hearing. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, you've heard Ms. Forback's concerns. Mr. Roberts, you want to address those? Staff, you want to jump in there too?
I don't really have an answer for her. There's no option for an additional entrance. This is all in accordance with the previously approved preliminary plat. Always just been one entrance for Weber Springs.
How many lots are out there?
So, I can't tell you how many lots are out there right now. But back when Weber Springs started to be developed, like early 2000s, they were approved by DOH for like 3 homes off of one boulevard entrance. Back then, when they came in under the 75 ordinance that didn't have a requirement for 2. So, having that entrance constructed and DOH giving them homes, kind of where we're at.
And DOH did not look at this.
Is that right?
It's under the original amount, so they haven't prompted any other traffic studies or anything like that. Like,
They did not.
Right. They said their own entrance for Valley. They amended it for the number of times actually are there now.
Forback, we don't get much help from DOH. Numerous trips have been made to Charleston by the county commission and by our engineer, and we don't seem to get anywhere with them. We hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure we can do anything about it. Thank you. Yeah. Planning Commission members, do you have anything you want to voice? I was just wondering if we knew, based on the staff report here, but when Section 3 preliminary plat was approved.
Oh, that major plan change.
So this was
2
included,
years ago.
Yeah.
included in the major plan change?
They had 2 plan changes, so they've come back in and did 5 lots, and then they came back in homes that were originally back in 04.
Okay, that's what I was
They were
wondering.
redesigned.
Yeah, the layout.
The
was just
redesign.
changed, but the
Yeah,
numbers.
the townhomes were there from the beginning.
Townhomes were shown on midnight concept of that. They have, it's not like they just popped up yesterday. That's been done for many years.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my question, that we've had townhomes in here on the
Yeah, they
books
actually had
since
14
2004.
The concept
Yeah.
being our actual plan.
Yeah, they've lowered the density on the townhomes, so it's even under that threshold that
They originally submitted on back in the early 2000s. Okay, I was thinking this has gone back that far.
it's
Way back.
Yeah, okay, all right. So the major plan change was just to redesign and
they've just
actually
reconfigured
lowered the
layout,
density.
I think, because
Basically
of
that
the,
and to do, they had to update the standard age. That was what got it in the first place.
There's also a,
They had to do water quality. And they came back in for the 5 lots, and they came back in and modified the townhouse. They had to do major stormwater damage. That was never taken in to the regional system.
Okay. But nothing was ever addressed regarding the entrance.
Never, because the entrance was already vested in
Right.
there by DOA.
Right, 350.
yeah, when we
Yeah.
go to DOH, we went that route with the first plan change we saw a few years ago,
They gave
and
me 3
they
steps.
told us that their threshold, this is their permit, they're valid, so went to DOH, they've just backed up the fact that that's entrance there, guard entrance, is still under the threshold from what they. So they're just standing by that permit.
All right, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept staff recommendation, grant the final plat approval contingent upon receipt and surety amount of $399,900. Plat be released upon receipt of surety and developers agreement.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gant, second by Mr. Bush, to accept staff recommendation, and that is to grant final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety, an amount of $399,900. Any additional questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
thank you.
Sorry. Okay, that concludes our public hearings. We'll move now to the preliminary plan approval for Bridle Creek.
Yes, this is a request for preliminary plan approval. The project is Bridle Creek, phases 9 and 10. The file number is 2111-404. The developer is Panhandle Homes of Berkeley County. The engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Opequon District, map 10, parcel 20.1. This project is located along the east and west sides of Barrel Race Road at the terminus of Furlong Way within the Bridle Creek subdivision. This project proposes 122 single-family residential lots on approximately 79 acres to be served by public water and sewer. No waivers or exceptions have been requested. On June 6, 2024, County Engineer Doug Smith deemed the above-mentioned project compliant with the subdivision ordinance 2009. The preliminary plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends advancement of the preliminary plan to the final plat stage.
Do we have anyone to represent the project?
I gotta recuse myself, Linda.
Okay, let the record show that Mr. Gant is recusing for conflict.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Steve Sianovich with Fox and Associates, representing the developer and the applicant.
Thank you. Any commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Stianovich or the staff? Does this finish up out there?
It doesn't.
there's
There's
still
another section that's close to Eagle School Road, another phase, excuse me. That'll be accessed via Phase 5, and that's a townhouse development referred to as Phase 7. That will connect to Barrel Race Road, but it's very close to the Eagle School Road entrances out of the community.
Mr. Sianovich, with the size of these phases, do you anticipate DOH wanting to weigh in and requiring a traffic study at some point?
The applicant started developing this property 2004-ish, and there's been numerous traffic studies, and most recently, we had to go back to DOH on this section, and there was an agreement and a financial contribution made to DOH to make some improvements at Meadow Lane, which I believe those improvements are either done or pretty close to being done. So DOH is seeking nothing further from the developer other than that contribution that was made.
As to this phase and all future phases, or can't say that yet?
I can't say that yet
Understood.
because every time we submit another phase,
Mm-hmm.
and again, phase 7 will be the final phase of Bridle Creek. We're caused to go back to DOH, but we did lot forecasting when we last went to DOH. So we were given kind of a threshold in terms of a mix of towns and singles, and I don't believe we're over that threshold. So I really believe DOH response is going to be no action required, but there's new players every day that we would have to certainly go through those motions when we go to phase 7.
Thank you.
But we do expect that the forecasting we made took in account the full, total, and complete project of the Bridle Creek subdivision.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Additional questions, commission members?
Hearing none, Madam President, I make a motion to accept staff recommendation to advance the preliminary plan to final plat stage.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Bush,
Second.
second by Mr. Lewis, to accept staff recommendation, and that is to move it on to final plat approval. Any additional questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I want to tell you that I experienced the roundabout at,
Madeline?
yeah, today. Because the light at Raleigh Street and
Edwin?
Edna Miller Boulevard was not working. So there was a big, long line of traffic leading all the way back to Hoss's Steakhouse, coming from 81.
Was that this morning, this afternoon? or-
It was about 1 o'clock, 1:30. So I went around and went through that little traffic circle. It was kind of a shortened onto it.
I was there 2 weeks ago, and I think they were just finishing the job
Yeah.
up because
It
DOH
looks like
still had
it's-
cones up.
Looks like it's finished now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, the next item under the preliminary plan approval is leachate treatment plant upgrade.
Yes, this is a request for preliminary plan approval. The project is leachate treatment plant upgrade. The file is 2404-100. Developer is LCS Services. The engineer is EarthRes. It's located in Hedgesville District, map 15, parcel 8. This site is located at 911 Allensville Road, approximately 1 mile northeast from Hammonds Mill Road. The developer is proposing an upgrade to the existing leachate treatment plant. The proposed disturbed area is 0.7 acres and will not be served by utilities. No waivers or exceptions have been requested. On May 2nd, 2024, County Engineer Doug Smith deemed the above-mentioned project was compliant with the subdivision ordinance 2009. The preliminary plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends approval of the preliminary plan.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to represent the project?
Dottels, I'm the owner's engineer.
I'm sorry, John.
John Dottels.
Okay. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of the applicant or of the staff?
All right, I'll make the motion, we accept staff recommendation and approve the preliminary plan.
Motion by Mr. Gant, second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendation, and that is to grant preliminary plat approval to the leachate treatment plan upgrade. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, final plat determination, overlook at Riverside.
Yes, this is a request for final plat determination. The project is Overlook at Riverside Phase 7, lots 78 through 112, 222 through 229, 244 through 251, and 289 through 305. The file number is 2405-124. The developer is Rott's Family Limited Partnership. The engineer is Frederick Seibert and Associates. It's located in the Falling Waters District, map 7, parcel 160.3. The property is located on the east side of Williamsport Pike and south of I-81. This final plat proposes 51 townhome lots and 17 single-family lots on 8.87 acres to be served by public water and sewer. At the April 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted the following deviations for a planned unit development. Direct access to boulevard not be permitted. Sidewalk to be placed on north side of boulevard. Plant fast-growing trees as a buffer between Brookfield and Overlook at Riverside. At the September 16, 2019 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted a waiver to Article 8, Section 801, Table 8-1A, reducing the required parking for multifamily dwellings within a minimum of 1.86 spaces per unit being provided. On June 6, 2024, County Engineer Doug Smith found the above-mentioned project compliant with the Subdivision Ordinance 2009. The final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the July 15th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Do I have anyone to represent the project?
Good evening, Ed Schreiber with Frederick Seibert and Associates, representing the applicant and owner.
Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Seibert or of the staff?
No questions. I'll make a motion, we accept staff recommendation. Final plat determination, advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval on July 15th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gantz, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation, and that is to consider final plat approval at a public hearing on July 15, 2024. Any additional questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, recuse from this next project too.
Okay, let the record show that Mr. Gant is recusing for conflict on Cardinal Point. Ready?
Ready? Yep. This is a request for final plat determination. The project is Cardinal Point, Section 6, lots 480 through 503, 528 through 551, 576 through 587, and 612 through 637. The file number is 2405-129. The developer is Panhandle Homes. The engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Falling Waters District, map 9, parcel 11.7. The property is located along the north side of Hammonds Mill Road, west of St. Andrews Drive. This final plat proposes 72 townhouse lots and 14 villa lots on 10.69 acres to be served by public water and sewer. At the November 5th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted a waiver to allow 3 on-site parking spaces instead of 2 on-site and 1 off-site. At the September 16, 2019 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted a waiver to Section 502.1 of the Berkeley County Subdivision Ordinance relating to the requirement of 2 points of access onto a public road or a WVDOH right-of-way for a development of 100 lots or greater. The approval was contingent on the bonding of Serena Drive encumbered by the authorized access road. There will not be a reduction and/or release of the surety on Serena Drive until the temporary serviceable road is built. On June 12, 2024, County Engineer Doug Smith deemed the above-mentioned project compliant with the subdivision ordinance 2009. The final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the July 15, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Do you have anyone to represent? Mr. Stoyanovich?
Yes, good evening. Steve Stianovich, representing the applicant and the developer.
Thank you. Planning Commission members, how about you? Do you have any questions of Mr. Stoyanovich or of the staff?
Just for my own education, traffic impact study in 2018. At what point does DOH look at that and say it's too old?
We were granted, well, that's a case by case. I can't answer, just give you a broad brush after 3 years or 5 years or whatever. But in this particular case, the DOH traffic study that was done, based on the 653 residential lot yield, required improvements to 901 at TJ Jackson, some lane widening, some restriping, that type of thing. That was really all the requirements that were established by the DOH permit that was granted for Cardinal Point, at which time we forecasted 653 residential lots. A few of these townhouses were revised to be villas within this section, so we're not reaching that 653 lot threshold. And this final plat this evening is the last final plat within the Cardinal Point subdivision that was based on the 2018 sketch plan that was presented to this commission. We do have a sketch plan in now to the county. They actually reviewed it, made comments. We're in the midst of revisions for what they call phase 7 of the Cardinal Point community. That would be east of the final plat that's before you this evening, between phase 6, section 6, excuse me, and St. Andrews Boulevard. There's a bunch of, I think it's 88, 86 villa lots proposed there, but we're just really in the sketch plan phase now, so I really don't have much more to offer other than that.
Yeah. Okay. And it would require some sort of external influence as well, in addition to the community, right?
I'm sorry?
So you're saying within the forecasting, you're within that, but should there be, and I'm asking a hypothetical. I'll withdraw the question. It's not fair to ask you a hypothetical.
I think I understand the question. DOH, whenever we did the sketch plan 2018, 653 was the total yield. We're now exceeding that yield. So we will definitely have to go back to DOH and seek either an addendum to the permit that was issued for Cardinal Point, or I don't know why they would issue us a new permit, but who knows? But again, with all the improvements that were made at 901 TJ Jackson, I don't foresee anything further being required.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of improvements made along 901 as a result of this project.
Criticism, I just appreciate the education.
Additional questions?
Last, more often than not, if the trips really don't.
This particular developer has done
This
particular developer has done extensive, trip generation forecasts along 901, given the other properties that Allen owns and developing. So we're constantly working with DOH on new projects, some of which you haven't even seen yet, trying to solicit feedback from them early on.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Make a motion, we accept staff recommendations for final plat determination and advertising a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the July 15, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, Mr. Lewis, second, Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation and as to consider a final plat approval at a public hearing on July 15, 2024. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Remind the commission members of the public hearing that the county commission is going to hold next Thursday at 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock in this chamber. If there's anything else from staff, Mr. Legal, you have anything you want to talk about? No? You have anything, Laura? No?
Then I move to adjourn.
Okay, no further questions or concerns. We have a motion from Mr. Goff to adjourn at 6:46.
It's July.
Do I get a second on that?
Second.
Second from Mr. Lewis.
Third.
Any questions? All those in favor?